Arminius spent years letting Rome believe he was one of them. He wore their armor, learned their tactics, and earned both a Roman officer's rank and Roman citizenship. Then he led 3 of their legions into a German forest and made certain that almost none of them ever walked out. It happened in the year 9, and Rome never fully recovered from it. Historians have called it Rome's greatest defeat. It stopped the most powerful empire the Western world had ever seen, dead, at the line of a single river, and it fixed the border of Europe for centuries. To feel the shock of it, you have to understand how confident Rome was. Under the Emperor Augustus, Rome was not just winning. It was expanding as if the whole world was simply a matter of time. Its legions had crushed everything from Spain to the Middle East. Now Rome was pushing east of the Rhine into the forests of Germania, building roads and forts and treating the local tribes as subjects who had already lost. The man running that occupation was a Roman aristocrat named Publius Quinctilius Varus, well-connected, comfortable, and completely certain that Germania was pacified. Varus made one fatal mistake. He trusted the wrong man. Arminius was a chieftain of the Cherusci, a German tribe, but he had been raised inside the Roman machine. He had served as an officer commanding German auxiliary troops for Rome. He had learned how the legions marched, how they camped, how they thought and fought. To Varus, he was a loyal, Romanized ally, a useful native who could advise him. In reality, Arminius had spent months quietly building a secret alliance among the German tribes and planning the destruction of the very army he rode beside. Varus governed Germania as though the tribes were already conquered subjects, imposing Roman law, Roman courts, and Roman taxes on a people who had never actually been beaten in the open field. The historian Cassius Dio wrote that these demands felt to the Germans like chains. Resentment simmered under the surface, while Varus, comfortable and sure of himself, saw only a peaceful province settling into Roman routine. That was the ground Arminius planted in. He did not have to invent German anger. He only had to organize it, aim it, and choose the exact moment to let it loose. The trap was patient, and it was perfect. As Varus prepared to march his legions to winter quarters in the autumn of that year, Arminius fed him a lie. He reported a small local uprising far enough away to be worth handling, close enough to seem easy. Varus, trusting his advisor, turned his long column off the safe route and into trackless country to deal with it. That column was enormous and slow. 3 full legions, the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th, along with auxiliaries and camp followers, strung out for miles through dense forest, boggy ground, and narrow tracks that no army was built to fight on. The Roman legion was the most fearsome war machine on earth, but its power came from formation, from massed ranks fighting in the open. In that forest, in the rain, stretched into a thin line, it was not a machine at all. It was a target. Arminius had chosen the ground as carefully as he had chosen the moment. The route ran through a bottleneck of wet woodland and marsh, narrowed in places by earth walls the Germans had raised in advance, so that the Roman column had nowhere to spread out and lock into its lines. Then the weather turned against Rome as well. Heavy rain came down, churning the ground into mud and soaking the Roman shields into dead weight, fouling the bowstrings and turning every slope into a trap. Arminius sprang the trap, and it was not one clean battle. According to the Roman historian Tacitus, and to later accounts by writers like Cassius Dio, it was a running slaughter that lasted for days. German warriors struck the strung-out column from the trees, hit it, and vanished back into the woods before the Romans could form up. Then they hit it again, and again. Rain fouled the Roman bowstrings and shields. The ground swallowed their footing. The forest that the legions marched through so confidently became a killing pen with no walls and no exit. If you like watching an arrogant superpower walk straight into a trap it never saw coming, subscribe. This is the exact kind of story this channel exists to tell. The Romans fought hard, they were professionals, and even ambushed and bleeding, they managed to build makeshift camps at night and hold some order for a while. But the trap only tightened. Over roughly 4 days, the 3 legions were ground down and finally annihilated. Varus, seeing that all was lost and that capture meant something worse than death, fell on his own sword. By most estimates, something like 20,000 Romans died in that forest. The eagles, the sacred standards of the legions, were captured and carried off as trophies, which to Rome was a wound beyond even the dead. When the news reached Rome, it broke Augustus. The ancient sources describe the old emperor, normally so controlled, wandering his palace and beating his head against a door, crying out for Varus to give him back his legions. He could not. Those legion numbers, the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th, were so cursed by the disaster that Rome never used them again. Here is the part that matters most. Rome did strike back. In the years that followed, a general named Germanicus led punishing expeditions across the Rhine, beat Arminius in open battle where Roman formations could work, and recovered 2 of the 3 lost eagles. He even marched his men across the old killing ground years later to bury the bleached bones of the dead. But Rome had learned its lesson, and the lesson was retreat. The cost of holding Germania was simply too high, the risk too great. Therefore, the Emperor Tiberius pulled the legions back and made a decision that shaped the map of the world. The Rhine, not the Elbe, would be the edge of the empire. Everything east of that river would stay free of Rome. Think about what that means. The Germanic peoples on the far side of that line were never absorbed into the Roman world. Their languages, their cultures, and their descendants developed outside the empire that swallowed almost everyone else. A great deal of what later became Northern Europe traces back, in part, to a border that one man drew in blood in a single forest. Arminius himself did not get a happy ending. He had united the tribes against Rome, but he could not hold them united against each other. A few years later, he was murdered by rivals within his own people, killed not by the empire he had humiliated, but by the jealousy of the men he had led. The historians Peter Wells and Adrian Murdoch, who have written the best modern accounts of the battle, both make the same essential point. This was not brute strength beating brute strength. It was a smaller, poorer, supposedly backward people destroying the finest army in the world because one man among them understood that army from the inside and used its own arrogance against it. Rome conquered almost everything it ever wanted. It did not conquer the forest where Arminius was waiting. If you want more commanders who humbled far greater empires, subscribe to Redoubt. There is a new story every few days, and the next one is already on its way.